The Colombo crime family, with an Italian-American mafia background, stands as the youngest among the 5 families controlling organized crime in New York City within the larger American mafia network. Its recognition as the Profaci crime family occurred during Lucky Luciano's reorganization of the American mafia, following the Castellammarese War and the assassinations of Joe the Boss Masseria and Salvatore Maranzano. Joseph Profaci's gang earned this distinction during this period. The family's origins date back to 1928, when Joseph Profaci formed a bootlegging gang. Profaci maintained undisputed control over his family until the late 1950s. The family experienced 3 internal wars, with the first occurring in the late 1950s when Capo regime Joe Gallo rebelled against Profaci. However, this conflict lost momentum in the early 1960s due to Gallo's arrest and Profaci's death from cancer. The family was later reunited in the early 1960s under Joseph Colombo. The Second Family War erupted in 1971 after Gallo's release from prison and the shooting of Colombo. Carmine Persico, leading Colombo supporters, emerged victorious in the Second War following the exile of the remaining Gallo crew to the Genovese family in 1975. Subsequently, the family experienced over 15 years of peace under Persico and a series of acting bosses. In 1991, a conflict erupted, marking the third and most brutal war within the Colombo crime family. Victor Orena, the acting boss, sought to seize control from the imprisoned Persico. This led to a division within the family, with factions supporting either Orena or Persico. The ensuing 2 years were characterized by chaos, culminating in 1993 with 12 family members dead and Orena incarcerated, ultimately securing Persico's victory. Despite emerging triumphant, Persico faced the challenge of managing a family ravaged by the conflict until his death in prison in 2019, and the family has never fully recovered. Throughout the 2000s, the family experienced further decline due to numerous convictions in federal racketeering cases, with several members becoming government witnesses. By 2011, many law enforcement agencies considered the Colombo crime family the weakest among the 5 families of New York City. History. In September 1921, Joseph Profaci arrived in New York City from Villabate, Sicily, Italy. After facing challenges with his enterprises in Chicago, Profaci returned to Brooklyn in 1925 and gained prominence as a notable importer of olive oil. On September 27th, Profaci acquired his American citizenship. Thriving in the olive oil business, he formed agreements with acquaintances from his hometown in Sicily. And among his significant clients was Tampa mobster Ignazio Italiano. Profaci commanded a modest criminal faction, primarily active in Brooklyn. The prominent Cosa Nostra factions in Brooklyn were under the leadership of Frankie Yale, Giuseppe Masseria, Niccolo Schiro, and the capo di tutti capi, Salvatore Toto d'Aquila. On July 1, 1928, Yale met his demise at the hands of Al Capone's hitmen, marking the culmination of a dispute. Capone orchestrated Yale's murder as a consequence of Yale's refusal to cede control of the Unione Siciliana fraternal association to Capone, who hailed from Naples. The aftermath of Yale's killing allowed Profaci and his brother-in-law Joseph Magliocco to expand their influence, securing territories in Bensonhurst, Bay Ridge, Red Hook, and Carroll Gardens, while the remaining members of Yale's group aligned with the Masseria family. The turbulence continued on October 10, 1928, with the assassination of D'Aquila, triggering a struggle for control over his territory. In a bid to avert a full-scale gang war in Brooklyn, a mafia gathering was convened on December 5, 1928, at the Statler Hotel in Cleveland, Ohio. The choice of location was strategic, being neutral ground beyond New York's borders and under the control and protection of the Perello crime family. The primary agenda was the division of D'Aquila's territory, with representatives from Brooklyn, including Profaci, Magliocco, Vincent Mangano, answering to D'Aquila family boss Manfredi Mineo, Joseph Bonanno, representing Salvatore Maranzano and the Castellammarese clan, as well as Chicago mobsters Joseph Guinta and Pasquale Lolordo, and Tampa mobster Ignazio Italiano. Concluding the meeting, Profaci secured a portion of D'Aquila's Brooklyn territory, with Magliocco assuming the role of his second-in-command. The Castellammarese War. Months after the D'Aquila killing, Joe Masseria initiated a bid to become the capo di tutti capi, boss of bosses, in the United States. He demanded tribute from the remaining 3 mafia groups in New York City, comprising the Reina family, the Castellammarese clan, and the Profaci family. Castellammarese clan leader Salvatore Maranzano, in response, launched his own campaign to secure the title of Boss of Bosses, sparking the Castellammarese War. Masseria, in collaboration with his ally Alfred Manfredi, the newly appointed head of the D'Aquila family, orchestrated the assassination of Gaetano Reina. Masseria suspected that Reina might align with Maranzano in the struggle for the coveted Boss of Bosses position. On February 26, 1930, Gaetano Reina was killed, and Masseria installed Joseph Pinzolo as the new leader of the Reina family. Throughout the conflict, Profaci maintained a neutral stance while clandestinely supporting Maranzano. The conclusion of the Castellammarese War occurred when Charles "Lucky" Luciano, previously a lieutenant under Masseria, betrayed him by orchestrating Masseria's murder on April 15, 1931, and aligning himself with Maranzano. Following Masseria's demise, Maranzano proclaimed himself the new capo di tutti capi in the United States. In a matter of months, tensions between Maranzano and Luciano escalated, leading to mutual plots for each other's demise. On September 10, 1931, Luciano orchestrated the assassination of Maranzano. Instead of assuming the Capo di Tutti Capi title, Luciano opted to establish the Mafia Commission. This resulted in the formation of 5 distinct Cosa Nostra families in New York City, and an additional 21 families throughout the United States, all governed by a Supreme Commission headquartered in New York. Profaci and Magliocco were officially recognized as the boss and underboss, respectively, of the rebranded Profaci crime family. First, family war. Joseph Profaci had risen to prominence as a prosperous mafia leader, earning the moniker the olive oil and tomato paste king of America. One of Profaci's contentious requests was a monthly tribute of $25 from each soldier in his family. In the late 1950s, Capo Frankie Shots Abbot Marco posed a challenge to Joe Profaci. Abbot Marco oversaw a lucrative policy game in Red Hook, Brooklyn, generating almost $2.5 million annually, with a daily average of $7,000. In early 1959, Abbot Marco, supported by the Gallo brothers and the Garfield boys, began resisting Profaci's tribute demands. By late 1959, Abbot Marco's debt had ballooned to $50,000, prompting Profaci to purportedly instruct Joe Gallo to eliminate Abbot Marco. However, alternative versions of the story suggest that Gallo may not have been involved in the murder. Allegedly, in exchange for Abbot Marco's demise, Profaci agreed to grant the Gallos control over Abbot Marco's lucrative policy game. On November 4, 1959, Frank Abbot Marco exited his cousin's bar in Park Slope, Brooklyn, only to be fatally shot by Joseph Gioielli and another hired assassin. Following this incident, Profaci instructed the Gallos to surrender Abbot Marco's son, Anthony. However, the Gallos resisted, and in response, Profaci denied them access to the policy game, marking the beginning of the initial family conflict. The Gallo brothers, along with the Garfield boys led by Carmine Persico, united against Profaci and his loyalists. On February 27, 1961, the Gallos abducted 4 key members of Profaci's organization: underboss Magliocco, Frank Profaci, Joe Profaci's brother, Capo Salvatore Musacchia, and soldier John Simone. While Profaci himself managed to evade capture and sought refuge in Florida, Larry and Albert Gallo dispatched Joe Gallo to California. Profaci's consigliere, Charles the Sige Lo Cicero, engaged in negotiations with the gallows, ultimately leading to the peaceful release of all hostages. However, Profaci had no plans to adhere to the peace agreement. On August 20th, 1961, Joseph Profaci orchestrated the killing of Gallo members Joseph Joe Jelly Gioielli and Larry Gallo. Allegedly, gunmen murdered Gioielli under the guise of inviting him for deep-sea fishing. Gallo narrowly escaped a strangulation attempt at the Sahara Club in East Flatbush by Carmine Persico and Salvatore Sally D'Ambrosio, thanks to police intervention. Consequently, the Gallos dubbed Persico the Snake for betraying them, fueling an ongoing conflict that resulted in 9 murders and 3 disappearances. In late November 1961, Joe Gallo received a 7 to 14-year prison sentence for murder. With Joe Profaci's death from cancer in 1962, his longtime underboss, Joe Magliocco, assumed leadership, perpetuating the feud between the factions. In 1963, Carmine Persico survived a car bombing, and his enforcer Hugh McIntosh was shot in the groin while attempting to assassinate Larry Gallo. On May 19, 1963, a Gallo hit team shot Carmine Persico multiple times, but he miraculously survived. In 1963, Joseph Bonanno, the leader of the Bonanno crime family, devised a plan to eliminate several adversaries within the Mafia Commission, including bosses Tommy Lucchese, Carlo Gambino, Stefano Magadino, and Frank De Simone. Seeking the support of Magliocco, Bonanno found a willing ally. Magliocco not only harbored resentment for being denied a commission seat, but also shared a long-standing alliance with Bonanno, extending over 30 years prior to Profaci's death. Bonanno's ambitious objective was to seize control of the commission and appoint Magliocco as his chief associate. Magliocco was entrusted with the task of eliminating Lucchese and Gambino, assigning the contract to one of his top hitmen, Joseph Colombo. However, Colombo, seizing an opportunity, exposed the plot to its intended targets. The other bosses quickly discerned that Magliocco could not have orchestrated this scheme independently. Recognizing the long-standing ties between Bonanno and Magliocco, both with Profaci and through familial connections, the other bosses concluded that Bonanno was the true mastermind. Summoned by the commission to account for their actions, Bonanno, fearing for his life, went into hiding in Montreal, leaving Magliocco to face the commission alone. Magliocco, deeply shaken and in declining health, admitted his involvement in the plot. The commission spared Magliocco's life, but compelled him to retire as the head of the Profaci family and pay a $50,000 fine. In recognition of his betrayal of his boss, Colombo was granted control of the Profaci family. Colombo and Italian-American Civil Rights League. The commission acknowledged Colombo's loyalty by granting him control over the Profaci family, which he subsequently renamed the Colombo family. At the age of 41, Colombo became the youngest boss in New York and the first mafia leader born and raised in the United States. Recognizing the potential for a lengthy leadership tenure, Colombo aimed to secure a dominant position not only in New York, but potentially nationwide. To ensure his sustained influence, he strategically reorganized the family hierarchy, elevating older mobsters to key roles over younger, more ambitious members who could pose a threat. Notably, Salvatore Charlie Lemons Mineo and Benedetto D'Alessandro were promoted to underboss and consigliere respectively in an effort to bring stability to the family after a turbulent period of conflict. Colombo continued his consolidation of power by appointing Joseph Joey Yak Iacovelli as consigliere upon D'Alessandro's retirement in 1969. Alongside former Gallo crew member Nicholas Bianco and New England family boss Raymond Patriarca, Colombo successfully concluded the conflict with the Gallos, earning Bianco an induction into the Colombo family as a token of appreciation. In 1968, Larry Gallo, leader of the Gallo crew, passed away from cancer. Upon assuming the role of boss, Colombo restored peace and stability to the fractured crime family. Despite this achievement, some Cosa Nostra bosses regarded Colombo as a mere puppet boss under Carlo Gambino's influence, questioning his worthiness of the title. Colombo's unchallenged leadership was maintained through the unwavering support of Carlo Gambino. In April 1970, Colombo established the Italian-American Civil Rights League, dedicated to combating discrimination against Italian Americans. Although disapproved by many mobsters due to the league attracting unwanted public attention to the Cosa Nostra, Colombo remained undeterred and continued garnering support for his cause. On June 29, 1970, Colombo organized the inaugural league rally. By 1971, just ahead of the second demonstration, the remaining New York bosses instructed their associates to distance themselves from the event and withhold support for Colombo's cause. Indicating a shift in allegiance, the league's primary coordinator, Joseph DeCicco of the Gambino family, resigned, ostensibly citing health issues. In 1971, Joe Gallo was released from prison, asserting that the 1963 peace agreement did not pertain to him as he was incarcerated during its negotiation. In what seemed like a conciliatory move, Colombo extended an invitation to Gallo for a peace meeting, accompanied by a $1,000 offer. Gallo declined the invitation, insisting on $100,000 to resolve the conflict, a proposition Colombo rejected, thereby triggering the onset of the Second Colombo War. Subsequently, Colombo issued a new directive for Gallo's elimination. Second Family War. On June 28, 1971, the Second League rally in Manhattan's Columbus Circle was hosted by Colombo. While Colombo was about to address the gathering, Jerome A. Johnson approached him and fired 3 shots into the back of his head. Within moments, Colombo's bodyguards retaliated, fatally shooting Johnson. Although the attack did not claim Colombo's life, it rendered him paralyzed for the remaining 7 years until his natural death on May 22, 1978. Despite widespread suspicion within the Colombo family that Joe Gallo was behind the shooting, police investigations eventually concluded that Johnson acted alone, reaching this conclusion after questioning Gallo. Following the Colombo shooting, a meeting of the family's high-ranking members took place. At the gathering, underboss Salvatore, Charlie Lemons Mineo, was urged to assume the role of interim boss. However, Mineo declined, citing his advanced age and declining health. Instead, he proposed that Consigliere Joseph Joey Iacovelli be appointed as acting boss. While the leadership of the Colombo family suspected Gallo as the mastermind behind the attack on Colombo's life, Iacovelli decided against immediate retaliation. The New York Police Department's stance may have influenced Iacovelli's choice. Despite the police's belief that Gallo was not involved in the Colombo shooting, they recognized the family's inclination for revenge. Consequently, officers were assigned to monitor Gallo, ensuring his safety and making it extremely challenging for the Colombo family to approach him. Promptly eliminating Gallo after the Colombo incident could have conveyed the impression of a widespread mob conflict in New York, drawing unwanted attention from law enforcement. By the beginning of 1972, the attention on the Colombo shooting had diminished. Subsequently, an open contract was issued on Joe Gallo's life. On April 7, 1972, acting on a tip, 4 gunmen entered Umberto's Clam House in Little Italy and assassinated Joe Gallo while he was dining with his family. Seeking revenge, Albert Gallo dispatched a gunman from Las Vegas to the Neapolitan Noodle restaurant in Manhattan, where Iacovelli, Alphonse Persico, and Gennaro Langella were dining. However, the gunman failed to recognize the mobsters and mistakenly shot 4 innocent diners, resulting in the deaths of 2. With Iacovelli on the run and underboss Mineo previously expressing disinterest in assuming the top position, the path seemed clear for Persico, now a capo and the leader of a formidable faction within the family, to permanently assume the role of boss. However, Persico found himself incarcerated on federal hijacking charges in January of that same year. Consequently, another capo named Vincenzo Aloi son of the esteemed former capo Sebastiano Buster Aloi and the godson of Carlo Gambino, assumed the role of the new acting boss. Aloi's time as acting boss was brief, though, as he faced perjury charges on June 26, 1973. He had lied to a grand jury, asserting that he had not visited a Colombo family safe house in Nyack, New York, before the Gallo murder. Following his conviction, Aloi, who was out on bail awaiting an appeal, resigned from his position as acting boss. Joseph "Joey" Brancato, who assumed the role of acting capo for John "Sonny" Franzese, while Franzese served a 50-year sentence at Leavenworth for bank robbery, later took on the role of acting boss. However, Brancato was not interested in a permanent leadership position. He accepted the role of acting boss solely with the aim of negotiating a resolution to the ongoing conflict with the Gallo crew. At that point, the Gallo crew had divided into two factions engaged in internal strife. In order to bring an end to the internal conflict, Brancato, along with the leaders of other New York crime families, engaged in negotiations. The result was an agreement in which Albert Gallo and his remaining crew peacefully departed from the Colombo family, joining the Genovese family. This marked the conclusive conclusion of the Gallo Wars. After successfully orchestrating a peaceful resolution to the Gallo Wars, Brancato stepped down from the position of acting boss and returned to overseeing his Long Island crew. With no other suitable contenders for leadership, Carmine Persico, who was incarcerated at the time, officially assumed control of the Colombo family by the conclusion of 1973. Thomas DeBella was appointed as acting boss, Alphonse "Aliboy" Persico as consigliere, and Anthony "Tony Shots" Abbott Marco as underboss. The family under Persico. After the widely publicized media attention surrounding Joseph Colombo and the violent activities of Joe Gallo, the Colombo family experienced a period of relative tranquility and stability. With Colombo in a coma, Thomas DeBella assumed leadership of the family. Known for his ability to elude authorities since his only bootlegging conviction in 1932, DeBella found it challenging to prevent the Gambino family from encroaching on Colombo's criminal enterprises, leading to a decline in the Colombo family's influence. DeBella, due to declining health, retired in 1977, and Colombo passed away in 1978, leaving the Colombo family grappling with yet another power vacuum. During the 1970s, Carmine Persico ascended in prominence within the family and was widely regarded as the clear successor to the boss position. However, in 1973, Persico found himself behind bars, serving an 8-year sentence for hijacking and loan sharking charges. His imprisonment coincided with the release of his brother Alphonse, who had completed a 17-year prison term. During Carmine's absence, he designated Alphonse as the acting boss, with support from Gennaro Langella as underboss and Carmine's other brother Theodore. Langella oversaw various labor schemes for the family, including their involvement in the Concrete Club, and maintained control over several labor unions, such as the Cement and Concrete Workers District Council, Local 6A. In 1979, Carmine was released from federal prison. However, in November 1981, he faced new legal troubles, being convicted of conspiracy and racketeering charges and receiving a 5-year prison sentence. On February 25, 1985, indictments were issued against 9 leaders of the New York Mafia, which included Langella and Persico. The charges encompassed narcotics trafficking, loan sharking, gambling, labor racketeering, and extortion against construction companies, forming part of the Mafia Commission trial. The prosecutors sought to target all the crime families simultaneously by highlighting their involvement in the commission. On November 19, 1986, 7 of the defendants were found guilty of racketeering. Subsequently, on January 13, 1987, Persico and Langella received sentences of 100 years imprisonment each. In a separate legal proceeding, known as the Colombo trial, Persico was sentenced to 39 years, Langella to 65 years, and Alphonse Persico to 12 years on November 17, 1986. Selwyn Rabb, a Mafia historian and reporter for the New York Times, later observed that the commission trial inflicted more enduring damage on the Colombos than on any other organized crime family. Rabb highlighted the significant impact on the family, emphasizing that Carmine Persico, the boss of the Colombos, was notably the youngest among New York's crime bosses and was at the zenith of his capabilities. Despite being 53 years old during the commission trial, Persico had already led the family for 14 years. In contrast, the other bosses in New York were in their 70s and would likely have relinquished power to members of Persico's generation, even without the legal intervention that resulted in their imprisonment. Rabb speculated that Persico could have enjoyed an extended period of leadership had the trial not disrupted his potential long reign. Even though Persico acknowledged he wouldn't regain direct control of the family, he was resolute about ensuring that his share of the family's illegal profits would still benefit his relatives. Prior to his arrest, he had appointed Alphonse as the acting boss, maintaining him in that role after the arrest. However, when Alphonse fled bail following a loan-sharking arrest, Persico established a three-person ruling panel to oversee the family. In 1988, he dissolved the panel and appointed Victor Orena, the capo of Little Alley Boy's former crew in Brooklyn, as the temporary acting boss. Persico explicitly stated that Orena was a temporary placeholder until Little Alley Boy could return. Despite this, Persico granted Orena unusual authority, allowing him to induct new members and authorize murders, privileges seldom given to an acting boss. Third Family War. By 1991, Orena had become convinced that Persico was disconnected from reality and causing the family to miss lucrative opportunities. He also grew concerned about Persico's plans for a made-for-television biography, fearing that prosecutors might exploit it as they did with Joe Bonanno's revealing book during the commission trial. Consequently, Orena made the decision to assume control of the family. Leveraging his strong connections with Gambino boss John Gotti, Orena appealed to the Mafia Commission to recognize him as the boss. However, to avoid escalating conflicts, the commission declined his request. Undeterred, Orena instructed Consigliere Carmine Sessa to survey the capos on whether Orena should replace Persico. Instead, Sessa tipped off Persico about Orena's attempt to stage a palace coup. Enraged, Persico ordered a hit on Orena. On June 21, 1991, when Orena returned to his home in Cedarhurst on Long Island, he discovered gunmen led by Sessa waiting for him. Fortunately, Orena managed to escape before the gunmen could carry out the attack, marking the commencement of the Third Colombo War. Orena dispatched his younger brother Michael, also known as Mickey Brown, to send his two sons, Michael and the younger William, nicknamed Willie Boy Orena, on a deadly mission into Brooklyn. The exact roles played by the brothers in the murders during the war remain unclear, but FBI agents are confident that they were accountable for the disappearance of 15 associates and business partners linked to the Orena clan. William Willie Boy Orena was apprehended upon disembarking from the Fire Island ferry in Sayville, Long Island, carrying 8 pistols believed to have been used in the violent acts and $43,000 in cash. During Willie Boy's detention at the Riverhead County Jail, all 8 firearms mysteriously vanished from the evidence locker. The gang war resulted in the deaths of 12 people, including 3 innocent bystanders, and 18 associates who have never been located again. Over 80 members and associates from both factions of the Colombo family were either convicted, jailed, or indicted, encompassing individuals such as Persico's brother, Theodore Teddy Persico, his son Alphonse Persico, DeRoss, Orena's nephews, William V. Orena and Michael Orena, as well as Orena's 2 sons, Victor Jr. Orena and John Orena. Despite appeals to the Commission for Intervention, the conflict persisted. In November 1991, Gregory Scarpa, a loyalist to Persico, narrowly escaped an ambush by several Arena gunmen while driving his daughter and granddaughter home. The conflict persisted until 1992, when Arena was found guilty of racketeering, the 1989 Accra murder, and other associated charges. He was sentenced to 3 life terms plus 85 years in federal prison. A total of 58 soldiers and associates, with 42 from the Persico faction and 16 from the Arena faction, were incarcerated. Raab later observed that Persico's efforts to maintain control of the family from prison had nearly dismantled it. According to his calculations, approximately 70 members and associates of the family were convicted during the conflict, reducing the family to around 75 active members. Throughout the Colombo War, the Commission consistently denied any Colombo member a seat on the Commission and contemplated dissolving the family. Lucchese underboss Anthony Casso suggested merging the family with his own to put an end to the conflict, and in 2000 there were proposals to distribute its manpower and resources among the remaining families. Finally, in 2002, with the assistance of Bonanno family boss Joseph Massino, the other families permitted the Colombos to rejoin the Commission. The family after Third Colombo War. With Arena no longer in the picture, the path was open for Little Ali Boy to assume the role of acting boss upon his release in 1994. Carmine Persico designated Andrew Russo as acting boss in 1994, but when Russo went to prison in 1996, Alphonse Persico stepped in as acting boss. In 1999, Alphonse Persico was arrested in Fort Lauderdale for unlawful possession of a pistol and shotgun, a violation due to his status as a convicted felon. Shortly after his arrest, he ordered the assassination of underboss William Wild Bill Cutulo, an Arena supporter during the Third Colombo War. Cutulo's son, seeking revenge, volunteered to cooperate with law enforcement by wearing a wire and posing as a potential Colombo associate. Based on the evidence obtained from this undercover operation, Little Ali Boy faced RICO charges. Recognizing the slim chance of acquittal, he pleaded guilty to state charges in February 2000 and RICO charges in December 2001. In 2004, Alphonse Persico and underboss John Jackie DeRoss were indicted for the murder of Cutulo. In December 2007, both men were convicted and received life sentences. Family consigliere Joe Waverly Kakash assumed leadership of the family until 2003, when he was imprisoned on charges of murder and racketeering. The family then fell under the influence of Tommy Shots Gioeli, who assumed the role of street boss. In June 2008, Gioeli, along with underboss John Sonny Franzese, former consigliere Joel Kakach, Captain Dino Calabro, soldier Dino Saracino, and several other members and associates, including Orlando Ori Spado, faced indictments on various racketeering charges. The charges encompassed activities such as loan sharking, extortion, and 3 murders dating back to the Colombo Wars. Alphonse Persico received a life imprisonment sentence on February 27, 2009 for the Cutulo murder. Following Gioeli's incarceration, Ralph F. DeLeo, based in Boston, Massachusetts, assumed the role of the family's street boss. On December 17, 2009, the FBI accused DeLeo and Colombo family associates of engaging in drug trafficking, extortion, and loan sharking across various states, including Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New York, Florida, and Arkansas. Current position. Following DeLeo's imprisonment, Andrew Andy Mush Russo reassumed control of the family. On January 20, 2011, charges of murder, narcotics trafficking, and labor racketeering were brought against street boss Andrew Russo, acting underboss Benjamin Castellazzo, consigliere Richard Fusco, and others. Castellazzo and Fusco entered guilty pleas to reduced charges in September 2011. Additionally, in December 2011, it was disclosed that Capo Reynold Maragni cooperated with the FBI, providing information on Thomas Gioeli's involvement in the 1999 murder of William Cutulo. Fast forward to July 11th, 2018, when 4 associates and members of the Colombo Crime Family faced a 32-count indictment, including charges of money laundering, racketeering, illegal gambling, and extortion. These alleged crimes occurred between December 2010 and June 2018, primarily in Brooklyn and Staten Island. Among the accused were 2 made members of the Colombo family, Vito DeFalco and Jerry Chiari, along with Gambino crime family soldier Anthony Licata. On March 7, 2019, Carmine Persico, the boss of the Colombo family, passed away in prison. Following Carmine Persico's demise, his son Alphonse Persico was overlooked, and his cousin Andrew Mush Russo assumed the official leadership of the Colombo family. Russo's close associates included underboss Benjamin, Benji Castellazzo, consigliere Ralph Di Matteo, capo Vincent Vinny Unions Ricciardo, capo Richard Ferrara, and capo Theodore Teddy Persico Jr. Subsequently, on October 3, 2019, capo Joseph Amato, along with Daniel Capaldo and Thomas Scorscia, faced indictments related to 2014 Staten Island extortion and loan sharking charges. Amato pleaded guilty on March 22, 2021. In another development on August 13, 2020, an indictment was issued against Colombo family associate Francesco, Frankie Russo, Genovese family soldier Christopher Cerchio, attorney Jason J. Kurland, and securities broker Frank Smukler. They were charged with conspiracy, wire fraud, and money laundering. The indictment alleged that lottery attorney Kurland, along with Russo, Cerchio, and Smukler, defrauded $80 million from lottery winners through an illicit scheme that involved diverting funds from the winners' investments. Notably, Francesco Frankie Russo is the son of former Colombo captain Joseph Jojo Russo and the grandson of Andrew Mush Russo, the reputed boss of the Colombo family. On September 14, 2021, an indictment was issued, naming key figures of the Colombo family, including the official boss Andrew Mush Russo, underboss Benjamin Benji Castellazzo, consigliere Ralph Big Ralphie Di Matteo, captains Vincent Ricciardi, and Theodore Teddy Persico Jr., soldier Michael Uvino, and associates Thomas Costa and Dominic Ricciardo. The charges against these Colombo family members included the alleged infiltration and takeover of a labor union based in Queens, along with its associated healthcare benefit program. Additionally, they were accused of conspiring to commit fraud related to workplace safety certifications. Ralph Di Matteo, declared a fugitive, was not present during the indictment, but surrendered to the FBI on September 17, 2021. On April 20, 2022, Jeffrey Lichtman, Andrew Russo's lawyer, announced that Russo had passed away at the age of 87 on April 18, 2022. Subsequently, on April 23, 2022, Andrew Russo's funeral in Brooklyn drew 100 mourners.